Isn't it pretty crazy that Super Mario Odyssey came out over 6 years ago, and this October will actually be 7 years since the last original 3D Mario game? At the same time, Super Mario Odyssey came out in 2017, and I really didn't start making videos until the summer of 2018 when Splatoon 2 launched its Octo expansion DLC, so I was a little late to the game and really didn't get to cover Mario Odyssey the way I wanted to. So today, that's exactly what we're going to do, and I'm going to do a video that I've seen a lot of people doing recently, which was ranking every single capture in Super Mario Odyssey. There are a total of 52 different captures between enemies and strange objects in Super Mario Odyssey, and I'm going to rank them starting at number 52 and going all the way up to the best at number 1. So some of these are a lot easier to rank than others, as a lot of them are very weird objects that don't really do a lot in the game, so I'll be ranking things not only based on what you can do with that ability, but what it also leads to after using that capture. So there will be like big context for a lot of these little ones that don't really make a lot of sense, but you'll see when we get there. Real quick, I want to thank you guys all for clicking on today's video. Stop what you're doing. Let's see how many people we can get to subscribe from this one video. Most of you guys watching this are not yet subscribed, so it'll only take a quick second, especially if you love Super Mario Odyssey. Show me by just simply subscribing. But let's jump into the list of the top 52 Super Mario Odyssey captures ranked. So starting the list at number 52 as the worst capture in the entire game, it has to be the boulder in the Wooded Kingdom. I mean, seriously, it's just a big rock that you capture just to move out of the way to go into a hole to collect some coins. That's literally it. It's not even fun to move. There's just nothing cool about this. Next up at number 51, we have a tree. Yes, in the same area, actually, you can actually move a tree. At least you can hop a little bit. It's essentially the same concept, but you're just hopping instead of sliding. And that leaves us to number 50, the cactus in the Sand Kingdom, which is still kind of the same thing, but it's a cactus, and you have a bigger area to kind of move around, even though you can't move around that much from its original point of origin. It's still, I guess, a little more fun to bounce and move with. Look, these first couple are hard to rank. Next up, we have the Bowser statue, because we kind of get to turn into Bowser here, even though it's in statue form, and we're just kind of moving out of the way very slowly. So once again, it's nothing incredible, but I guess it's technically a cool reference back in the day with the Bowser statues from Mario Bros. 3. That's really all I could pull from. Then you have the mini rocket. This simply just allows you to get to the bonus mini worlds, which is that's about it. You can't really control the rocket, you can't move, it's just kind of like holding down a button until the rocket takes you to the next area. And the same thing with the taxi in New Donk City, where it just kind of drives off and takes you to a shady back alley at night where it's raining, and you have to fight some enemies as Sherm. So yeah, it kind of just things that take you to some interesting levels, so I guess they have to be a little higher than the rest. Number 46, we have the manhole cover in New Donk City, which actually leads you to an area of more importance since it's like one of the main missions of this world. So technically it's got to be a little bit higher. And then at number 45, we have meat. Yes, it was just kind of weird and cool, and come on, it has to be higher than the rest. You get to play as meat covered in salt, and you break out of it and wiggle over, and this giant bird grabs you and throws you in the stew at the top of the volcano in the mountain. I think it has really cool impact at the end, and I thought it was actually pretty cool and funny at the same time. Next up, we have the binoculars, which allows you to see. That's really about it, but I guess it's kind of cool because you get to shoot up in the air and look at everything in a sky view, so it's a little better than the rest. Next up, we have Jizzo, which is just a Tanuki statue where Mario gets to hop into a little puzzle area in order to complete it by filling in the empty spot, which is just pretty cool to play as a Jizzo. We've seen the references back since the old Super Mario Bros. Games, so this was kind of cool. Next up, we have the Lake Kingdom puzzle block where you just move it around until you fit it in the right spot as you're just kind of doing this little puzzle, moving it around the grid. And then I would say the puzzle block from New Donk City's power grid is actually a little bit harder, so I would put it up a little higher because it takes more brain power and brain meat to figure out what to do. Number 40, we have Picture Match Mario, where you have to take pieces of Mario and kind of build his face on this grid, which is pretty interesting because after you place a piece down, it disappears, so you can make funny faces and stuff, and it's funny to see what your creation actually looks like. But at number 39, I picked Picture Match Goomba, which is slightly harder because there's no color or anything, it's just the outline of the Goomba, so it's really hard to tell where the face pieces are supposed to go, and man, you're gonna get some messed up pictures sometimes. It felt like I was just slapping Nike logos on the Goomba half the time. Next up, number 38, we have the coin coffer, where you just turn into this thing and run around until all the coins poop out of your butt. That's really about it. But actually, your main goal is just to sit there and spit coins at a little sprouted leaf in order to grow a plant for a power moon, and it takes an awfully long time. So yeah, it's not really an acquired capture that a lot of people like, you know, it's kind of tedious. Then we have the Mario letters in New Donk City. Come on, it's kind of fun to walk around as a Mario letter and spell out Mario in the Central Park of the Metro Kingdom. I thought that was pretty unique. Then we have the two different versions of Piranha Plants. We have a Fire Piranha Plant and we have a Poison Piranha Plant. Fire Piranha Plant will be first, as it pretty much doesn't have a lot of uses. There's only a couple instances where you can use it, and you're stuck in one spot and you can't really do much with it. Where the Poison Piranha Plant actually has a couple levels built around it where you have to poison an invisible path, for instance, in the Wooded Kingdom, so there's more aspects to that one compared to the Fire one, even though they're both kind of just plants that you can't move or do anything with when you capture them. Next up, we have the Purple Cheep Cheep from the Snow Kingdom, and there's only a couple of small little puddles that you can swim in with it in order to collect some coins at the bottom of the water. Capture itself is really good, but not in this particular instance. Parabones is a capture that you get at the very end of the game in Bowser's Gauntlet, and all you can really do is flap and fly with them. That's really about it, and there's only one area that you can use them in, as you have to cross this lava gap and also dodge enemies. It's not a lot with this one. Next up, we have Lakitu, where we actually get to go fishing. We're kind of confined to this small fishing hole, but you get to actually fish for real life fish that are for some reason underneath the sand, and you gotta watch their shadows and stuff. You know, every Nintendo game's gotta have fishing somewhere in it, and I'm glad that we can actually fish in Super Mario Odyssey. It's nothing crazy, but it's still pretty cool. Some of you might be asking, why is Zipper this high? But some of you might actually understand why it's this high. Something about Zipper is so incredibly satisfying, I really can't even explain it. It's just because it's so cool to feel the kind of vibrations of unzipping some fabric and then watching it fold over, and you can actually run on it afterwards. It's just like really cool. It doesn't do anything super, and you don't really have to do anything besides like follow the line of the zipper, but it's so satisfying. I mean, once you play it, you'll completely understand. Next up, we have the Big Chain Chomp. Now, I believe there's only like one giant chain chomp in the game, and it's in the Cascade Kingdom, but I like it because it's one of the very first times we get to hold an actual enemy in this game and actually become them and slamming the walls and stuff, and breaking the giant wall with the chain chomp just felt really good, even though it's just essentially the same thing as the little one. I wish there were more opportunities to be a big chain chomp. Number 28, we have Taipu, which is this giant cloud that can blow gusts of wind, that can move objects such as giant blocks, and also can push spinies off of platforms, which is just super satisfying. You move very slow with this thing as you're floating through the air, but I'm telling you, blowing the spinies is another one of those things like the zipper that just feels good to do. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm saying it feels good to kill spinies. I guess I'm deranged. Paragoomba is slightly better than Parabones because you're able to do more with this capture. There's more mini levels where you get to go in and collect, for instance, moon coins, and also like dodge giant waves of poison and stuff. So yeah, you're just doing more with this capture than you ever did with Parabones, which is just unfortunate for that capture. And then I chose the Spark Pylon because this thing is just universally awesome. There's actually lots of little mini missions built around this thing, and I just had a blast popping in and popping out of this thing. I feel like it was a lot more underrated than people think. Next up, we have the Moai, which allow you to put on some shades to see invisible platforms. This is a all-around really okay capture ability. I thought it was pretty cool to kind of see those invisible platforms and test your memory by taking the shades off and running on the invisible platform, which I thought was pretty cool. You can't do much else with this thing. You can't jump or anything, so yeah, and when you're wearing the shades, he walks pretty daggone slow. Next up, we have Charge and Chuck, which we didn't really get to see until the end of the game. There's a couple other extra missions that involve this character, but running over enemies and smashing through blocks is extremely satisfying, and I just wish there were more challenges and more missions utilizing Charge and Chuck because this was a blast. Number 24, we have Sherm, which is a tank that puts Mario into first person and you can fire with it. It has a little bit of wonky controls every now and then. It's not the greatest aiming, but to be able to fire things is pretty cool as a tank. Then we have Glydon, which there's a couple of stages that you get to use him, but it's just really fun to glide down from a really high point of one of the maps and just to fly around. And I really hope something like this returns in a future Mario game. Next up, we have the Goomba, which is a very basic Mario enemy over the years, but being able to jump on other Goombas and stack them up and have lots of little obstacle courses in this game made for Goombas specifically felt really cool. And the Goomba, a very boring basic enemy, actually was turned into a pretty cool capture mechanic in this game. Then we have the basic Chain Chomp, which is pretty much the same thing as the big one, but the only only reason I put this a lot higher is because there is a particular level that has you taking chain chomps and bouncing them off of one another in order to reach this certain destination where you had to plug one at the very end into a hole, which was super cool, and I love the kind of mechanics and physics of bouncing chain chomps off of each other, which ultimately raised this capture a lot higher. Then we have the Chevarian Racer, which allows you to bounce around a racetrack, which is very satisfying to hit the ramps at the right angle and continue to bouncing forward and having that forward momentum. I wish there was more stages where we actually just got to do like little challenges with him instead of just racing, but I really love this capture. Next up at number 19, we have Brood's Chain Chomp. Now this one is actually kind of cool because it's integrated into a boss fight, and especially the last one on the moon where you have to knock off like 5 hats off of the gold chain chomp before you can even capture it. Then when you capture it, you gotta kind of run away from Madame Brood and then slam it into her face, which is an extremely satisfying boss battle attack. So yeah, this capture is pretty good. Next up, number 18, we have the Frog, the very first capture of the game, which was so cool to be a literal frog. Like, you could hop around, it moved and felt like what a frog would. You could jump and jump extremely high. I just really wish there were more uses of this, and there's a couple like bonus stages that you get to use the frog, but that's really about it. This was really cool, and I wish it was utilized more. Next up, we have the RC car. Just turning into a human and driving this little RC car around was actually very satisfying, and it was kind of funny and cool at the same time. You're just standing there with a controller driving a car, and I actually like the controls of this thing, and it was a fun little box car type of thing to have fun with. These next two are going to make a lot of people think that I'm mentally insane for putting them this high, but next we have the pole. Yeah, it's the pole from New Donk City. This thing is so much fun. The amount of momentum it gives Mario, just flinging yourself from rooftop to rooftop around the city. Mario's run after it, you're just full speed. This thing is awesome, and I feel like a lot of people just are underappreciating how good this little pole is, even just flinging yourself up the side of a building. And very close beside it would be Valbonin, which is just these 4 creatures where you can actually capture them and do the same thing. It's just like a pull back and fling, but there's a lot of cool instances this is actually used in. There's actually rooms where you have to like fling yourself up a side of a wall and capture multiple of them and keep flinging yourself up, and it's just a satisfying feeling to fling upward. And yeah, I absolutely love these two captures. Next up, we have the Gushin from the Seaside Kingdom, which is fun to just kind of blast in the air all Mario Sunshine style. The only problem is you gotta keep coming down for more water, but it's a really cool mobility item to get across the top of the water and even up in the air. And you have the Uproot from the Wooded Kingdom. This one is also just extremely satisfying. All you do is kind of just stand up, but in a weird way, there's so many satisfying things you can do. You can crack nuts, I'm sorry, and you can also move around obstacle courses and just kind of reach higher ledges, and the little pop-up you can do after you stand up just feels so satisfying, and I just love the little sound effects of this guy. Then I would say the Cheep Cheep. The Cheep Cheep makes swimming underwater an absolute beautiful breeze, and it's one of the most disappointing things in video games because it's so slow and boring, and in Super Mario Odyssey, you can't really swim that well. So yeah, using the Cheep Cheep felt like a dream come true because it's a fish, so its underwater swimming is just completely unmatched by any. So yes, at number 12 we have the Tropical Wiggler. Now this one is just satisfying to a T. Being able to stretch like an accordion and reach different platforms and then snap your body back to that platform feels so good. And I love just kind of weaving in between enemies and collecting coins and collecting different things that you need to get for the level, and it just feels so satisfying to reach a ledge and then snap back to it. This is a really fun capture mechanic. Next up, we have the Bonsai Bill at number 10, now down to our final 10. The Bonsai Bill is so satisfying. It's this giant bullet bill where you can just smash through bricks and just smash through enemies, and you don't use it that much, but when you do, it really does feel like you're a powerhouse. Next up, we have the T-Rex. Come on, everyone loves the T-Rex. It's such a fan favorite, but it's just not as good as some of the other ones on this list. Yeah, you get to turn into a giant dinosaur and stomp all over the place and stuff, and it still is really cool and mind-blowing that you can do this in a Mario game, but I wish you could do a little bit more with it. Then we have Knuckle-Tech's Fist. This was an awesome way to take out a boss by taking his own hand and punching himself in the face. You had to also bob and weave around the crystals that he tossed at you, and it really just felt like it was kind of like the Bullet Bill or the Bonsai Bill, but you actually got to punch this enemy with it, and it was so cool. Next up, we have Fire Bro. Fire Bro is strange because there's not a lot of them in the game compared to Hammer Bro, but I mean, to move around as one of my favorite enemies of all time, I'm gonna be a little bit biased, okay? I love the Hammer Brothers, but Fire Bro is pretty cool to hop around and throw fireballs everywhere. Next up, of course, is Hammer Bro. Hammer Bro actually is like Frying Pan Bro in the Luncheon Kingdom, so this is where we really get to use him the most and just kind of break these blocks of cheese, and it's so much fun to bounce around and chuck unlimited frying pans at these blocks and break them and stuff, and even when you get to use the hammer variant, it's the same. It's just a lot of fun. You know, you finally get to be that OP enemy all the way from back in the day where just so many hammers are tossed, and now you get to be the one on the other side of the wall now, throwing the hammers, and I love the feeling. Next up, we have Yoshi. Who doesn't want to run around as Yoshi and stick their tongue to walls and attach to them and even have a flutter jump? So yeah, Yoshi's pretty cool in this game, even though he's saved to the very end of the game, but there's some fun levels and stuff that they do with him. Down to the final four. At number 4, we have the lava bubble. I think this is one of the coolest things ever for Mario because we could never do anything with lava. We could never swim in it or do anything inside the lava areas. So to be able to actually use the entire lava region like it's water by just swimming through it with a lava bubble is so cool. And it swims so well. There's so many fast fluid movements you can do inside the lava, and there's lots of little missions that requires you to jump in lava puddles and stuff. It is done so well. Number 3, we have the Bullet Bill. The Bullet Bill is so amazing to be able to play as. It's one of those enemies I've always thought about flying through the air with, and they've done it absolutely perfectly in Super Mario Odyssey. There's so many little missions where you have to fly in a little path and not bump into a wall. It just takes like precision in order to use the thing, and I just love everywhere that it's used. Every time I'm able to turn into a Bullet Bill, I just get a little more excited. There's not much else to say about it. It's an extremely simple capture where you can only just like speed up and turn, but it's just such a good one. And at number 2, we have Bowser himself. Now, a lot of people are going to be upset with this one, and a lot of people would say it's number 1, but I really love everything about turning into Bowser. You know, slashing through the walls, breathing fire, jumping, roaring like Bowser, actually playing as Bowser felt incredible for the first time in actually a 3D adventure game. But at the same time, I wish there was something that we could fight. I wish there were enemies to fight or some type of little boss or something besides just breaking blocks. That probably would have placed it at number 1. But because we didn't do anything like that, number 1 is Pokio. Pokio is the best capture ability in this entire game. Being able to poke and stab enemies in order to knock them out, or sending bombs back to the sender, or even being able to scale the side of a building by sticking to the wall and flinging yourself up the side, not to mention an incredible boss battle against the Mecha Brutal, where you actually get to scale this thing and shatter the glass cockpits of all 4 Brutals. This capture ability was extremely well thought out and definitely my number 1 in the entire game. But that is all 52 captures ranked from Super Mario Odyssey. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this list and what you would have changed, and what's your list? What are your favorite captures in the game and what are your least favorite? Thank you so much for tuning in, but before you head out, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a like and subscribe. It took a while to make, and I know you guys really love Super Mario Odyssey out there, so let me know by leaving a like and subscribing. It goes a long way. But thank you so much for tuning in, and like always, I'll see you all on the next one. See ya, guys.